it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of Spigs18 or Anthony. We have AD or Alpha Dean over there. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch or subscribe to us over on YouTube. We just hit 1,000 subs over there, a little over 1,000. Thank you guys so much for all the support. We couldn't have done it without you guys. But if you haven't subbed to us over there, be sure to, because I'm sure this community can reach even greater heights. But without much ado, Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
Man, oh man, you know what? We're a week out from Gamehole Con. We're going to be running there. We're going to be running some games and all that stuff. So what better thing to do than talk about running games at conventions? This is going to be running convention games. And, you know, we no preamble, no Josh and Anthony. Let's get into it.
Yeah. First off, what's up, guys? Hey, guys, welcome back to the CU. Like Dean said, tonight's topic, you know, we got inspired. Like we always do, we scramble to figure out what our topic is, especially in this day and age where we came off a series of interviews, so it was easy. So we haven't done any of these editorial pieces in a while. So we didn't have a topic for a while. So we got inspired by the fact that all three of us are going to Gamehole Con next week. And, you know, we're going to be running games there. So it got us thinking about running and playing convention games. So I figured this would be a great topic. You know, we want to have a loose conversation on some of the do's and don'ts of game mastering at a convention that everyone should be aware of. And what should you expect from the experience of con GMing if it's your first time? Because I think, like with every con, you always get somebody that takes the plunge and, hey, I want to start running games for either MCG like us or many of the other great companies. So hopefully we're all going to learn something new about convention play. You know, if you're running for a company like Monica Games like us or posting original content, I think this chat should be applicable to either side of that discussion. So I'm excited about it. So just for the sake of the discussion, I think, you know, let's break it down into three categories, right? So the first category we're going to break it down into is pre-game, like what you should be doing before your con game, right? So what should you do in terms of prep? What do you need before you start? Do you use pre-gens or not? And how do you greet your players? And how do you arrange your table? Which is a very interesting idea for us to discuss and think about. The second category we break it down into is the actual game. How do you get the session off on the right path? What is the most important thing you need to accomplish in your game? And of course, how do you make it an enjoyable experience for everyone involved? And the last category we're going to break it into is post-game, taking feedback and critique from your players. Did you highlight the system or company you were running for? And last but not least, what can you learn from every con session to take away for the next game that you plan to run? So I personally, when I wrote out the show notes, I jotted down my personal ideas. And we're just going to use my personal ideas as a base. But everyone in chat and Alan Dean, feel free to throw in your advice, because I am by no means a con expert GM. I was just the one writing the show notes, so I was the unlucky one having to organize it. But I guarantee you that we'll have better ideas from chat. And Dean has way more experience con GMing than me, so I'm sure he has a bunch of jewels to add into the discussion. So what do you guys want to kick it off?
I mean, I can kick it off, or do you want to, or?
Oh, go ahead, Al. Take the ball, right, Al.
So I'm the least experienced. I'm just going to be right, because we're starting this conversation right about tips for GMing at conventions. I'm the least experienced when it comes to that. I've been to all of one gaming convention, which was Gen Con 2018. But yeah, I'm sure I have some insights, and I can gain some good insights from these fellas here. So let's just dive right in. So first section is the pre-game session. What do you do before the actual game? So how much prep should you do to run a convention game? And what is the most important prep that you should do?
Do you want to read my first tip, Al?
Yeah, I'll go ahead with the first tip. So typically a con game is usually anywhere between to 3 or 5 hour session. Has a minimum of 2 to 3 major acts or scenes. we would recommend you have at least read all the material provided and have a general idea on how long it will take you to run each major act. If it is a game provided to you by a company, be aware of the full story plot and any important NPCs that play an important role in the narrative of the session. And yeah, this is a great tip. You can't really run a game smoothly without knowing all the major key parts, right?
I
And
know
yeah,
we always joke about that same 2018 Gen Con, how I ran a game without reading the adventure, but ideally, that's not the way to go. Because you got to look, people are paying, and sometimes they're paying $5, $6, maybe $10 to play in the game. And if you're running for a company like we tend to do most of the time, you want to put the material, in its best light. So having an understanding of the material that you're reading should be most important. I'm not saying you have to memorize the adventure or even use everything that's written in the adventure, but you should have a general understanding of what's the pace and what are the key figures in the adventure you're running.
the way I see it is like you gotta know the soul of the adventure at least to get started. Like again, you run games with barely any of the actual included material, which is fine, but you were able to still capture the essence or the soul of the game, which is the important part.
Yeah.
These two guys,
I literally have the title, but
and
They don't even know
honestly, Al and Anthony are giving you the gems. The truth of the matter is, the pregame is prepping yourself. The biggest thing though that you have to remember is not only do you know all the material, that means read the adventure and ideally read it from beginning to end and put it down and then come back to it a couple of days before the con, and then that way you're not wasting time at the table, trying to look at this and look at that. You'll be very familiar at where things sit. The other aspect of your pregame, in the respect of what Al was talking about, you need to know, not only do you need to know the adventure itself, but you want to know the characters that you're going to play, or if you're using pre-gens. If you're not using pre-gens, then you need to have the parameters set up to what your characters are going to be allowed to be, so you want to have that list built out. We're talking about Cypher system games, but this is for any game. What abilities are you allowing within the terms of your game? With Cypher system, what foci are you going to allow? And I would always suggest having, because I'm going to speak towards Cypher, having a specific list of foci that you're going to allow, or if you're going to tweak anything, have all that stuff readily available, so you as a GM, know what you're doing and you're comfortable.
I think it's that's if you plan to run pre-gens. I mean, not run pre-gens,
right?
But for the record, for people that are going to cons or specifically going to play Monte Cook Games cons, Monte Cook Games provides pre-gens 99.9% of the time for all their games. But Dean is right. If you're running like, you could be running your own Cypher system game or running many of the other great systems. This advice applies to everything. If you are not running pre-gens, it's good to have an idea what characters you can and will not allow. Dean brought up a good thing that was the point of my second bit of advice, is if you are using pre-gens, read all the character sheets beforehand, right? Know what the roles are supposed to be in the story on the character sheets, and know, in the case of Cypher, know what equipment and ciphers that are on the character sheets. This will help you anticipate what the players might try to do according to the information that's on their sheets, right? And that's something you could do 20 minutes before the game starts, guys. Just read all the character sheets and get a general understanding. Like, you want to be as prepared as possible with the minimal amount of work to put in, right? And reading the character sheets is an easy way to prepare yourself, because it's going to put you in the mindset, hey, I know this person has a detonation cipher. This might come up somewhere along the lines in the game.
Right. And you got to be prepared for those things, because players are going to do the unexpected, you know. And Sumter McGuy, yeah, you're right. I do have some, they did ask me to run an adventure at the last minute, but Anthony hit the nail on the head. It's from a lot of experience that it's easy for me to kind of peruse an adventure and get the gist of it and, get my mind in the right place to do it. I wouldn't suggest that or wish that on anybody who's just starting to do this. We're talking about under ideal circumstances and, ideal conditions, how to prepare and be ready. But once you get to running games and you've been doing it for a long time, yeah, it's not that hard, to kind of jump in and figure something out.
Another key aspect, or something I believe is a key aspect of knowing the character sheets ahead of time and before your game actually starts, is regardless of, or excuse me, you may have to tweak the adventure a tiny bit depending on the characters. Again, usually pre-gens are suited for the campaign, so the adventure, so the adventure will have whatever scenes or whatever have you that highlight certain aspects of a character, but you might want to tweak it so that certain characters shine in certain moments. You can set that up if you know what's on the sheet, just so that they don't feel like
abilities, motivation that's on the sheet.
And
okay, Deep.
I was just saying that some good points are being brought up about like if you're making characters at the convention and stuff, how it can take.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that because it's actually in the notes, Dean.
Okay.
What you call it? I lost my train of thought. But try to run the scenario before a game, before the con, if you can. I know this is one of those that most likely can't happen. But if you do have the time and you know what games you're running beforehand, like perfect example for Gamehole Con, I know the 2 adventures I'm running. Like ideally, I should get a group together and go, hey, let me do a quick pass of this game, because then you'll understand the story beats and how long each act and scene is going to take. Because I think the overall theme of this whole discussion is that you're going to have 4 hours to tell a complete story. So time management is the most important thing. So if you run it before you get to the con, you have a better understanding of how long each scene takes, instead of having to wing it at the con itself.
Right. And that is like, that's like the best piece of advice ever. If you can run it beforehand, because what that's going to do is going to help you develop your pacing, because players will do things completely unexpected. So it gives you the benefit of catching little spots and timing and quirks and things that you have to do, where sometimes the players are going to go off the rails. They're going to go in a direction that completely is not part of the adventure. But what you have to remember as the GM, the adventure, they don't. So whatever they do, you can always maneuver it back to don't get overwhelmed or distracted. This isn't a home game. So you don't have to go off on the tangent. You can always make whatever they do lead to the next place that they have to be, and that's huge for a lot of people who, get themselves caught in that place of going, oh my God.
Also, too, what you said, Dean, is you get to see how people will go off the rails by running it first.
Yes.
Because they might not go exactly the way it was in the first game, but you'll see the telltale signs of,
right.
Oh, wait a minute, this is starting to go off the rails every time you run it. And it'll be easier for you to catch it. The more times you run it, like with anything else in learning process, repetitiveness breeds understanding. So if you run it 2 or 3 times, you get a better understanding of what the overall narrative is and how to keep the pace of the game moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Sumter says sometimes you have to railroad them, but the beautiful part about it is they don't have to know they're being railroaded. That's the key. The key is allowing the players to feel as if it's their game. A lot of GMs, I think, we get that confused and we talk about railroading. It's not necessarily.
Dean, we actually have discussion that in the running the game itself. Let's
Yeah.
just try to get over. We right now we're in before you start the game.
Oh no, I'm just answering people's questions as they throw it out there. That's all.
I think Dean is the perfect one to lead into the next tip here because I know he loves this stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you
Oh,
start
what
that
are
one off.
the pre-generated characters?
No. The props. So what? This
Oh
one here, I
yeah,
have a
what you
highlighter.
need before we get started, So yeah, I do. I do love props. Where like Anthony is that guy who will do it online and he has all the great pictures and images. I love stuff on the table. I love laying it out and making it happen. So before you get started, be sure as early as you can get there 15, 20 minutes early. If you need to eat something, bathroom break, whatever, get there. And that way you can start setting your table up. And this way you can look at it and you can visualize and you can see so you don't forget anything. It'll give you the opportunity to reread important sections of the game, and you're comfortable. So when your players walk in, you're there and you can greet them and it looks like, hey, boom, this guy's ready to go. And you can greet them, and players can, put forth any concerns. It's just really nice, have extra pencils, dice.
Dean, you are way off on the show notes, dude.
You said you're talking about the props.
Mm.
Yeah, no, he's good. Yeah.
No, that bathroom stuff is not none of that in there. It's figure out you need hand-on coupons to bring their hands to experience.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
talking
Be
about
sure what you need to do before you get started. Be sure you be there as early as you can, just in case you need to eat something, use the bathroom, forget something, you want to reread certain sections of the adventure.
Oh, yeah, you way off, dude. All right, go ahead, read that.
No, but either way,
you see
though.
when Al highlighted?
Yeah.
You saw what Al...
Either way, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and say that what Dean was getting at is if you bring props to your game, they enhance the experience. Any other handouts you might need that'll enhance the experience of your session, you want to get that stuff already ahead of time. So specifically, like maybe miniatures, terrain pieces, if you like that sort of thing, or even just handouts that have ambient art on them, like again background, or we play Cypher, so you don't really need a gridded battle map, but if that's your thing, you can have that again ready ahead of time. You can put a grid on an ambient image. Those sort of things would be fantastic to do before your actual game gets started, obviously.
Yeah. Have your accessories ready. And with Cypher system, the NPC deck, the intrusion deck, the Cypher deck, stuff like that it's gonna help you out in those moments that you have to improv and you want to improv quickly. MCG creates products that are perfect for what you call it a con games, because they're quick, fast, and easy methods of generating narrative without having to think too much about it. Like what people said, you could, even though you might play theater of the mind, you could have a grid just in case the instant comes up that you might need a grid. Sometimes it's just easy, cool to draw it out. Like if everyone's having a problem visualizing it, there's nothing wrong with putting the map out and drawing a picture. It looks like this.
Right.
So
And the
having
same
those
thing.
props and accessories are just good.
And like I said, the same thing how Anthony does all the images. If you're that type of person, just a few images will make a great time. If you're the type of person that comes to the con with your tablet or your laptop and you have a cadre of images that you can set up that you can show your players, all these little things are going to make a difference in how your game runs. And it also helps when you're prepared with the things you need. You're not taking a minute to, hold on a minute, let me find this image online. Just have them downloaded, have them in a file, that you can pull up as quick and easy.
So all this is stuff that you should have before you even start thinking about how am I going to run this game. This is just some tools and tips of stuff that you'll have that's going to make it easier for you to run the game. just like Dean was mentioning earlier, you have to decide whether or not you're going to use pre-generated characters early on. I tend to like pre-gens because it allows you to jump straight into the action, but I do know some people like to spend the first 30 minutes in character creation, and that's not bad, but there are some benefits to pre-gens. Like we mentioned earlier, if you're using pre-gens, you know exactly what the characters are capable of. And if you're designing the pre-gens, you're making them as effective as possible for the scenario that you're planning to run. You know that they're not broken, and you know that you have a diverse group of characters that all have abilities that will be able to shine in different areas. And that's what you want. You want to be able to share the spotlight time. And the easiest way to do that is have a diverse group of characters.
Right. And again, and another thing you might want to do just on a humbug too, is like if MCG gives you some gives you all the pre-gens and you have them beforehand, you might want to fool around and maybe tier them up a tier or two just in case. And I say this only because it's happened to me, where you get maybe 2 people or 3 people. You don't get a full table. So you give them the option to use a higher tier character in order to facilitate that change in the game, or you can do what MCG is famous for and adjust the tail accordingly within the parameters of the game. But that's just another option. That's just something you can do.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Because say you run a session at a con and everyone has a great time, and somewhere down later on in the week they want to continue where you left off, you already have them tiered up.
Right.
So, oh yeah, we ran this game as tier 1. Guess what? We're gonna improv a tier 2 game from a con game. I've actually been in a game like that. That's happened. Dean probably run it. So
I've done it.
You know what I mean? So that's actually excellent advice. And if you are gonna pre-roll, if you are gonna roll the characters at the table, try to pick a system. This isn't Cypher related though, but try to pick a system that character creation is fast and easy. Because like with any con game, you have 4 hours, 4.5 hours max. You don't want to spend an hour rolling characters. So there's certain game systems, no matter how fun they are, it just doesn't make sense to have characters, players roll characters at the table before.
Right.
Cypher, you might get away with it because you might be able to roll everybody's character in 20 minutes or so. But
just out of
some other games you can't.
Well, I was going to tell you for Cypher, that's why I made this statement earlier. What I did for a game, because people were really interested in learning, so it was a learn Cypher system adventure. I had 4 hours. I set aside 45 minutes for characters. I had 6 people. What I did was I took 12 foci. So there were 12 foci that were available, and I broke it down like that. I had the flavors available, and I had actual explanations of each of the foci. And then, of course, the character types. And literally, I was able to get 6 characters built in 37 minutes. It was pretty cool, but I didn't allow them to have the entire 70 some odd foci to look at, in that way, and the foci were all tailored to the adventure. So no matter what they took and what type they chose, they were going to be effective characters, towards the adventure, like Anthony is saying. So that's just another method of looking at it. When you're building pre-gens, you should look at your pre-gens through that lens. And the same difference if you're going to allow people to build characters in Cypher System.
But that's an awesome point, because Cypher System actually encourages that. Like when you look at the back, there's that, what I think is campaign tracker. I forget what it is, but you keep track of what's allowed in your game. And again, that's an awesome way to allow people to create characters on the spot while also limiting what they can choose from, and that speeds up the process. What you're trying to I think it was KedHup in chat said efficiency is what you're going for in a con game. So just narrowing down those options I guess it doesn't really matter what game you're playing. If there's a ton of options in whatever system or whatever, just pare them down, make a choice of options for the players to choose from. That will increase the time, or excuse me, decrease the time spent making characters.
Right.
And Kazarek also mentioned they already have the Cypher shorts, which is
Right.
essentially, a quick and dirty way of creating characters. So if you're doing a Cypher, you could easily do character creation with Cypher shorts, which is
Yeah. And don't try to bring all your books. I honestly, I'm a firm believer, as much as I love the printed books, as you can see behind me. Yes, I love them, but I would suggest, pare your stuff down, sit down at your computer. If you got a couple of days before the con, sit down at your computer and just work out your outline. And, if necessary, print that up. Don't try to bring all your books. Buy a PDF or two.
I'm actually doing something this year that I've never done for any con that I've gone. I'm actually writing out on my Surface Pro what exactly I need to do. I'm more of a wing it kind of guy, but I'm actually taking the steps and breaking down the chapters of each adventure and like tips and tricks of what to look for, just so I could have a better understanding of since I got to read the adventures way beforehand this time around. So I'm actually doing a little more prep than I normally do.
Do you have a pen option on your Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah. So see, that's what my tablet, my Samsung, same thing. I got the pen, and it's the best thing. And you can actually mark on your PDFs and erase stuff and everything else. Is really cool. I love it.
But I don't have the PDF for this year's adventures.
All right, we talked about that. I'm gonna try my best to get it to you tonight. I just gotta look at my stuff.
I'm working off the book, so what I'm doing is I'm using like a Word document just to write, type in quickly what I need to know. But now we're gonna hit the question that Dee was answering, jumping the gun on earlier. What do you need before you get started? Like, Al, you want to read my advice?
Yeah, I'll dive in because this is pretty common sense, but it's definitely worth mentioning.
I think some of this advice is very helpful, though.
Yeah, no, the first one definitely. But again, if you're good at time management, not everyone is. This one's a pretty good one. So be there as early as you can, just in case you need to eat something, use the bathroom, forget something. Any of those things can happen. You want. Or if you need to like go over the course material, or not course material, but the adventure again.
It's a course. It is a course.
You have that time. You can have a check at what you're doing before you actually do it with enough time beforehand. And yeah, you can make corrections to things. You can add things if you feel like you were missing something. That would be a great time to do it. But the important thing is that you give yourself time to correct any mistakes you might have made beforehand. Like, I didn't use the bathroom. You can run off and do it. Oh, I didn't have a snack. I'm starting to feel it. You can run off and do it. All that comes from being early.
Have extra pencils, dice, postcards with notes for initiative trackers, like they were mentioning. Bring refreshments if you can. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to just have some drinks on the side. Right? Because cons are chaotic. I can't stress this enough. Players forget things all the time. You know how many times the player will show up, they were in the vendor hall, they forgot their dice, they need dice, they need a pencil, be able to provide that for them if that is the case. And that way the game is going to start off in the right foot and on time, which is important. Because once again, the theme of this whole thing is that time is not only important, it's the key to every con game.
I mean, just look at these extras that we're talking about. Just look at them as, like we talked about earlier, like accessories. These are just things that you should have in your con utility kit. Think of being Batman. You gotta. I got my bat dice. Got my bat pencils. You want to make sure you're ready at that same bat time on that same bat channel to get the game going. And I don't think we can stress that enough. Like Anthony said, the essential nature of managing your time and making sure your time isn't going to be wasted on other things.
Something guy brings up a great point too that I should have put in these notes. It gives you time to talk to other GMs that are there, and you could go over game plans on how, if you're running the same adventure, how do you plan to tackle it? Or maybe they'll show you a perspective of the adventure that you didn't think of. So, once again, the more information you get, the more prepared you are. And by talking to other GMs, it's going to definitely make you more prepared. Here's the one that I brought in for myself, because I can't speak for Aladdin, but everyone knows I'm an extrovert. I am super outgoing, but I will not lie to you. In person, face-to-face games, 5 minutes before the game goes on, I am a nervous wreck until I get the first laugh or the first smile at the table. I have anxiety, right? So one thing I do to fight that is I try to bring something that's relaxing to me. Like, so I'll get there early, I'll maybe listen to some music, or I'll chew some gum, go over the material, take a good 2 or 3 minutes of me time to help me calm my nerves. I can't speak for everybody else, and if some other people experience the same thing, this is just what I do, and it helps me to prepare before, I meet the whole group of people to, center myself, and I won't be as nervous.
I could chime in. I have anxiety the whole time up until the game actually starts. It doesn't matter what I do. There's nothing that can prepare me for it. So there's no listening to music. There's no gum chewing. There's no whatever have yous. I just am a ball of anxiety until the game actually starts. Then I'm fine. So yeah, this particular thing can be very difficult to get over. So don't feel discouraged if you have that sort of anxiety leading up to your game. It's normal. What's important is finding ways like Anthony does to push through it, or finding ways like me to just endure it. Because I literally am just like, okay. I'm just constantly in my head thinking of, do I have everything in place? Even though I know I do. I've counted all the sheets many times. I've looked at my dice many times. That anxiety is still there lingering until the game is actually going. But I endure it, and then I have a blast during the game. So again, it's something you struggle with, just know you're not alone.
And I guess I'm an odd man out because I don't care. I mean, like, I'm normally just as relaxed. I'm like the guy after the game. Then it's like, I'm really critical. Oh man, I should have done that, and I should have done this and that. But actually getting there and getting started, but I think that comes with time too. Because because I enjoy gaming so much, and I enjoy being a game master and telling stories, I think that's why it doesn't bother me. I'm excited about the next story, but I'm very critical.
I don't think, just for the record, Dean, I don't think having anxiety is not normal. Like, I think that a lot of people have anxiety.
No, that's what I said. I said I'm an odd man out.
Yeah. Dean is like the grizzled war veteran, quite literally.
Like I said that. I said I'm an odd man out. I know, like I said, and I was saying that to say that I know that. I know I'm the weird one of the bunch, because I don't have the anxiety. It's like I said, I'm really looking at everything afterwards. So. And I think, like I said, I think that comes with time. I think that's one of those things, I've been to more than 50 cons in my life. I've been to Gen Con.
I don't think it's time. I just think that it's your personality, because I've also been to more than 50 cons, and I still get anxiety right before a game.
I used to. I don't anymore.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that it's like, I just think it's like person's nature. But the point of bringing it up is not that it what you call it, you know, it's that you need to just push through that wall and then everything's gonna be okay. That was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, I know. I got that. You and Al
Yeah.
said the same thing. I was just saying, I was just pointing out that some people, some of us weirdos who don't get any anxiety, you're not a bad person either. That's all.
Dean was just like, you guys who don't struggle, who don't have any problems, you guys are okay too.
Recognize us perfect people.
All I'm saying, you're okay too. Everybody is okay.
I'm Batman for quick. Can somebody recognize Batman? I'm gorgeous. I'm rich. I do everything well. Can somebody think of me, Bruce Wayne?
Ooh, but either way, I'm gonna dive in with the next one here because I think it is an important one and probably one that y'all already have down packed. So this is something that I guess maybe I might struggle with. I mean, I don't think I'm a particularly quiet person, but either way, next one here. Recognize your surroundings. You're going to be at a convention, right? So most conventions, you're playing in a game hall where multiple games are happening at the same time. You might need to speak a little bit louder than you normally do. So practice speaking louder to your table if you can. Or at the beginning, once things get rolling a little bit, ask the players if they can hear you fine. It could also happen before the game because usually, there's a little bit of banter before the actual game and there's still games going on around you. You can ask them, hey, can you hear me? Like once you're sitting in your chairs, you know what I mean? You're getting ready to start. Hey, were you guys able to hear me fine from here? Should I speak louder? So on and so forth. Well, because cons can get quite loud.
Yeah. The reason why I put this in there because this was from personal experience. The same 2018 con. I don't think Dean, you did this one with me, but it might have been Mike. We went to play Kids on Bike. We purchased tickets to play a session of Kids on Bikes, and the person running it was great, really nice person, but they were talking so softly. So the first hour and a half of the session, no one could really hear what was going on. And it wasn't until we took our first break and they asked the group, hey, is there anything going on, that all six of us were like, could you speak a little louder? And after that, we had a great time. But it was just that little thing, like the person was a good GM, understood the story. Everything was on point except for the volume of their voice. And if they would have asked that question or recognized it at the beginning of the session, it would have changed the overall experience for the 4-hour session, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I mean, that's very important. So that's something as a GM that you can take into account for yourself. A few minutes in, 10, 15 is just ask your players, can you hear me clearly? Is there, is there anything, that's going on, or just to gauge the table. So what Anthony is saying is an imperative because you need to be heard. You need to be able to hear your players, and the other thing I'm going to say as a GM at these cons like that, you really got to embrace your game. That's like really important,
Yeah, I can't speak enough for that, especially some of these cons get crowded. Also, too, there's nothing wrong with readjusting the seats according to the way the tables are set up. Like if you notice that to the left of you, there's two separate games being run, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, guy, let's move this table over, half a foot to the left. So we're not directly hearing what's going on in these other two tables. Because, the con organizers, they may drop the tables down, but over the course of the day, the tables move, the chairs move. So try to set yourself up for the most ideal spot, location-wise, to get the most out of your game session. And, the tables and chairs are not bolted. So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, guys, let's move over a little bit.
And you bring up an excellent point. Something that I made it a point to kind of do too as well is try to get myself in front of my players and have my players with their backs to the other tables. This way I'm projecting to them, and and because they're not distracted by what's going on around them. You know, it works. It really does, because that way you are projecting and your players are seeing you, and again, that Anthony does it, Al does it. I don't even think they realize that they do it, but something that they both do and they do it well is that engagement with the adventure and the players. They're there, they're animated, they're GMs, and those things make a lot of difference as being a GM at a con, especially because you want that focus there, your table, your group. And it's an imperative that you learn that, it's okay to really engage your players like that. Don't be afraid.
Dean, that's the perfect lead-in for our last question to answer on the pre-game before you actually start the game, right? So how do you greet your new players at the table?
I'm like you said, I'm excited. Hey, welcome. I'm AD. I'm from Cypher Unlimited. Welcome to the table. I'm glad to have you here. Any of you guys on our Discord, if not, join when you get a chance. But hey, we're here to play Stealing Stories for the Devil. I'm there. I always have a little spiel that I'm ready to give my players because I want them to feel engaged and I welcome them to the table. They're the most important thing in that moment.
I think this is the one question in here that probably it's solely individually based on your personality, but this is what I wrote, right? I like to be as friendly and smile as much as possible, try to be as inviting as I can. Go ahead, Al. You were gonna say something?
Go ahead.
Right? Because most times, personally, at cons, people are either pretty new or never played whatever game you're trying to run. So they're a little hesitant to begin with, right? So you should try to make them feel as relaxed as possible when they first sit down. Try asking them if they ever played the system before. Ask them what styles of games they have played, and what style of gameplay are they looking to get from this game, right? If you have new players, and most likely you will at a con, be sure to go over any of the core mechanics quickly at the very beginning and let them know, this is very important. Let everyone know at the table that it is okay to ask questions, either mechanically or understanding your character sheet at any point during the game. Make them feel like, hey, I don't put them in a position where they feel like they have to, be shameful if they're asking a question or not. Make them feel as comfortable as possible, and that's what I try to go for. And when I play in con games, I tend to gravitate towards the GMs that make me feel as comfortable as possible.
Most definitely. And that's actually exactly what I was going to say. I've only ever run demos. I only went to one gaming convention and I did demos. I didn't run a full game. So it was imperative for me when people were sitting down, I was doing predation demos specifically. And I had to ask, hey, have you played Cypher System before? Or are you just trying predation for the first time? Like, they might be familiar with Cypher System, but they might not be familiar with predation. So depending on how they answer you, you might be able to skip over something because they might actually have some familiarity with Cypher System. So you might just have to talk about the setting or whatever have you. And it was important to let them know, like, hey, I know you're probably new at this, or even with people who might know Cypher System, like, hey, you might not know much about predation. Be sure, like, if you have any questions, just ask it. There's no shame in that. That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn. We're here to have a good time. And not knowing how a certain aspect works or a certain detail of the setting is basically a barrier to that. So it's definitely imperative that they feel comfortable asking those questions.
And again, like we said, we're talking about Cypher.
Charles Ryan from Monica Games is in chat. Charles, I'm actually running 3 sessions of your horror game at Gamehole Con this year. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, and basically what Charles said right there in the rules, that's one of the things that I make sure Don't try to overwhelm them. Just tell people the basic mechanics of Cypher system, the basic rules, and let everybody know. Guess what? If you've never played it before, it's easy. You'll catch on quickly. But I'm here. I'm gonna hold your hand. And make it work.
And you know what? When I said talk about little mechanics, what I mean is I'm not going to talk about effort or edge. I'm going to talk about stuff like, hey, you never play Cypher system? You know that the GM doesn't roll dice, right? I'm going to say stuff like that. You know what I mean? All you need is a D20, and it's a target number. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you a target number. If you could divide by 3 and multiply by 3, you're okay. It's very simple. I'm not going into the specific of the mechanic, but just giving them the idea like, hey, you really only need a D20 and I don't roll dice. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Intrigue them.
Exactly.
So,
and of course, because it's also Monty Good Games, and not that they created the whole idea of the X card or anything else, but they did write a wonderful document, and I always make sure I let them know that that's on the table, that we're going to make sure we're not going to go too far. I look at my table. Make sure you assess your table. Sometimes you're going to get kids at the table, so you're going to have to make sure, you're going to have to sometimes censor what goes on. You're in a room full of people, so you want to be aware of that as well. So you can't go off the rails and have a triple X rated game, because you got other people in the room. So all those things need to be taken into account as well. That is a very important thing, and that's a good quick conversation you can have with your table as well.
Dean, the last thing we forgot to bring up before we start the actual game is go over the table rules, like what you basically say, and explain any safety tools like an X card or lines and veils, whatever you're using as a safety tool or a way to keep all your players at the table, let them know that it's a safe space to game, because you want to make everyone know that it is a safe place to game no matter what genre you're playing, right? So talk about the X card if you're using the X card. Talk about something like lines and veils if you're using that method, but have something available. And if they choose not to use it, fine, but have it available for them anyway.
Yeah. Ken brings up a good point. He says he'd like to pass out cue cards and tell people to write down X things so it can stay anonymous. That's actually great. That's actually a beautiful thing to offer your players as well. That consent in gaming document that MCG wrote, that checklist, you can make copies of that checklist and just pass it out to your players and let them check things off if necessary. But this way you have a very big awareness of what the consent in gaming is at your table.
All right, so now that we got the basic general, is there anything you want to add or anyone in chat want to add that you need to either prepare or know before the actual game starts? I think we covered most of the parts of what you should prep or do before the actual con game starts, before we move into the actual game itself. You guys have anything?
No, I think we're good.
I think we covered them.
All right, so then we're going to go into how do you get the game off in the right path? This is going to be the meat of the discussion because this is the actual gaming is happening now. I mean, I wrote some ideas. We can either go over my ideas or if you guys have any ideas.
Well, yeah, I mean, Anthony, your first point is absolutely the bee's knees. I mean, avoid a lengthy introduction, allowing your players to introduce their PCs, what they look like, and maybe a quick idea of why they're there. But don't waste too much time on introductions. Tell them they can develop their personalities over the course of the session and save time. Time is very important, and you want to save as much time as possible for actual gameplay. And that also goes in the other direction for you as the GM. Don't spend a lot of time on supposition. Get into the game and let the game unfold, and that's how they'll learn what's going on. Give them a brief overview so they can and they've already got that actually, because that's why they're sitting down at the table, because those their descriptions of the games that they're signing up for. So you just kind of remember that.
That's definitely a dynamite tip.
Okay.
No, it's just that's an awesome tip. Because this is something I actually struggle with when it comes to my time management. When there's games to be had. I don't know why I said it that way. But whenever I run games, or when I first was learning I'm still learning, but I would have a lengthy. And this is, again, my own personal games, not a pre-written adventure. I would have a lengthy scene in the beginning where players can really, introduce themselves, meet one another, etc., setting up the story, when you can just literally dive right into the story and have them explain what they look like, what they're doing, all that stuff we just mentioned during the first major scene, instead of having that preamble or whatever it is.
That's like the perfect lead into my next advice that I wrote in.
No, you want me to go with it?
Yeah, you can read it.
Yeah, so try to have your introduction scene go straight from character intros into the first act. So it's always a good idea to have all the PCs in the same place, like riding stagecoaches, patrons at a bar, or better yet, a party that already knows each other and are traveling to the first act, for example. Yeah, it's that, and if you can tie those introductions actually into the first act, that's even better. But my problem was that introductory scene was way too expansive. I was trying to do way too much in that little, like, it should be a very, very short section if you're gonna have it before the first scene.
And I mean, I think you both have hitting it on the head. If you read the opening to your adventure, 9 times out of 10, you can literally build an introduction into that opening. And that way the players get that moment. Everybody gets a moment right at the beginning, and you can start setting the stage and, letting every player realize that, hey, this is the flow of the game, because that's something else you want to do. You want to make sure you're engaging every player at the table as well.
So this is right off the bat in the beginning of the game. What do you do at the very beginning? Right. And the last bit of advice I put, which I think was said a couple of times in chat, but I was like, put the players in a situation that will force them to make a decision very early into the game. Highlight any mechanic that'll be pivotal to the entire session. So there's once again, I'm running the Taking. Horror mode is going to be something that's going to be prevalent in the Taking. Make sure that you at least put yourself in a position, not necessarily to use it, but to at least be able to explain what it is, right? And this puts the players in the game mode mindset immediately. If you force them to make a decision within the first 10 minutes of gameplay, everyone's mind switch. Okay, we're playing a game. I'm playing my character. I'm gonna be my character. As opposed to if you have that long drag lead in, everyone's still, I'm still Anthony, Dean's still Dean, when I should be Zorak the Beast Tamer, you know what I mean? In that mindset, instead of Anthony sitting at the table. You know what I mean? Right. So, and it allows you to teach them the rules that you want them to learn very early on in the process.
Right. And that is probably a gem. That's a nice shiny gem of advice, especially for new players. And this can be taken, we're talking about con games, but this can be taken for any game, especially when you're introducing new players. So that's a gem, Anthony.
So do you have anything else that you want to know when you first get started, that if you're a first time con GM that you should be concentrating on?
I think those are all the ones, don't overwhelm them with rules, because Cypher is the way it is, especially with Cypher system, that modular nature, everything is going to flow. And just remember, like we said, open the sequence, make them make a decision, plug in their character introductions into the opening, and, definitely don't overwhelm them.
All right, so then we'll move into what I feel is probably the heart and soul of this entire discussion. And I also think that everyone's gonna have, every experienced con GM may answer this question differently. So what I put down was just my personal, like what I feel it is, but I'm sure Dean and everyone in chat might have a different opinion. But this question is, what is the most important thing you need to know for convention play? Right? And I put, this is my opinion once again, and this is what I put. And you guys will tell me if you agree with this or not. But I put time management might be the most important thing you need to pay attention to in a con game. Traditionally, you have 4 hours to tell a complete story and not allowed to go over that time. Be mindful on how long a scene is taking you and try to keep the pace of the scenes moving at a schedule you personally are comfortable with. If it is okay to add or remove scenes to make sure that you have enough time for the ending of the adventure. And I wrote 3 tips. I said, keep a watch or a phone, keep a watch phone by you at all times so you can monitor it regularly to make sure you on schedule for your session. Have an extra scene prepped you can insert either into the second or the beginning of the last act if your players are plowing through your material and you might end too early. And the last tip I wrote is when you are reading the adventure during prep, try to figure out what scenes can be omitted from the story if you need to cut something out because you're running out of time. Remember, try to avoid cutting the final scene if you're running a company's pre-written adventure. That was my main point, and I kind of stand by that. I think time management in a con game is the most important.
No, I think that might even be an objective fact, because when you boil away all the other things like characters and how they fit into the setting and learning the material and blah 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 blah, all that stuff does not have like a set or like concrete deadline or anything. Like I'm probably phrasing this poorly, but your time frame, your 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever it is, that is set in stone. So without time management, all that other stuff falls apart and doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And
I wrote a whole bunch of other tips too, but to me, that's number one. We could go over my other tips, but that was my main tip that I thought was the most important.
Only thing I'm going to add to that first tip about that time management, know your material. Know your material. If you're running, pre-written adventures, like we're talking about, things that, MCG or whatever, know your adventure, or learn to be a very good improviser like Anthony. I'm throwing you under the bus, Ant. No,
I'm mostly improv.
No, but I'm not really throwing him under the bus because that is actually a very good talent, especially in these situations, because sometimes, like he was saying about, prepping a scene, if you don't have that prep scene, that extra scene or whatever the case may be, then you're going to have to learn how to improvise. You're going to have to find a way to fill those gaps. But the time management aspect, pacing, I think we all had to learn it. We've all been refining that talent over time, especially running a pre-written adventure, because it's not ours, it's not our thing. So you have to embrace it and then kind of meld it and make it a part of you.
And mostly with most pre-written adventures, especially for the MCG ones, they tell you at what point in the time you should be at. So in the book, you'll say the start of Act 2 should be 3 hours in. So they're actually helping you with the pacing. Right. So if you have a watch and you be like, hey, I'm 2.5 hours in and we still in Act 1, you're gonna have to start cutting some stuff, or You know what I mean? Like they'll let you know what the
Hey,
midway point is, how long it usually takes for the last scene.
what's
So
really
they're helping
beautiful,
you as you go along.
yeah, that's literally like having timestamps on the
Yeah.
adventure, and that is a great point, Anthony. Um,
Al, you want to read my second tip?
Yeah, this is again imperative because it comes back to time management. Keep everyone involved. Oh, excuse me. Try to keep the story moving along. It's very important when it comes to time management. Players love chatting. They love talking about the con or real life. This stuff is okay in a home game because it's cool. It makes things memorable. But at a con game, it can be the mark of death. Not only will it change the pace of what's going on, it's going to ruin your pacing in the game. Allow players to joke and have a good time, but always try to steer that good time back to the story and the action at hand, especially if it's only one or two people doing most of the talking. That's one very easy way to go get around that is try to not rudely, obviously, politely chime in and say, hey, to the third, like the person who's not talking, what is your character doing right now? And that should snap it back into the action because most likely that person who hasn't been talking is going to want to engage with the story and want to be involved. And yeah.
again,
Okay.
I think it goes back to our first statement or my first statement when I said know the material. If you know the material and you're excited about it and you're doing it the right way, then what you're going to do is continue to create, course that immersion. If everybody's immersed, you don't have you have a lot less of those worries, those distractions at your table. So these are little things that you're going to have to develop your own style in doing it. Whether it's with the handouts, whether it's with your descriptions, whatever, how you phrase the narrative. Those things are all going to make a difference in, keeping that table where it needs to be.
Dean,
You
that's
know.
the perfect lead into my next bit of advice. It's actually perfect what you're saying, is keep everyone involved in the action. Write little personal notes on how much spotlight time everyone is receiving, and be sure to distribute spotlight time equally. A con game isn't a home game, guys. People pay for the right to be at these games, so you can't have favorites. Everyone has to experience it, get something from the game. There's nothing worse than paying for a con game and one person is hogging all the time and attention from the game master. It's our job to make sure everyone gets their money's worth.
You're right.
That is, well, go ahead.
I was just saying, Anthony hit the nail on the head with that one. We've dealt with it. We've dealt with it on more than one occasion where you literally have player at the table think they know the system, they know the character types, they know the foci, and they try to tell other players how to, what their character would do, and I know Anthony's done it. I've had to do it, and I think even you've had to do it, Al, where we've literally had to tell someone, hey, calm down, let so-and-so answer, so these are things that, it is just, you just have to be, firm. You don't have to be mean about it, but these are things to be aware of.
I think one of the things that people, one of the benefits of Cypher system in itself is that it has a mechanic, right, that allows you to steer the narrative in the direction of any player at the table that you want instantaneously. And that's the GM intrusion mechanic, right? If there are overbearing or players that are, I don't want to say spotlight hogs, but are out there and are going and controlling the narrative for the party, a quick way as a GM at a con game, in order to get someone else involved, is, hey, Dean, do you want a GM intrusion? And steer the narrative or the story towards that player. And that's a way of doing it without insulting the player that is being an extrovert and is dominating at the table, but it also lets the table know, hey, it's Al's time to shine in this game. I'm handing him the XP. He can decide who he's going to give the other XP to, and it gives them it gives you the opportunity to spread the spotlight.
Right. Absolutely.
Al, you want to read the next one?
Sorry, I'm a
Don't be
little lost
afraid.
here. Let you go with the next one.
All right, the next one I wrote was, don't be afraid to hand weave some stuff. Keep the story moving. Sometimes, especially with a group of all new people who haven't played with each other before, they might not pick up the subtle clues you're trying to hit. If that's the case, it's okay to give them a clue to keep the session moving. Remember, time is the key. This happens all the time. This happens in home games. This is especially important in con games. They might be a clue or a mystery in a pre-written con game, and the players waste 15 minutes and they still not getting it. It's okay to be like, hey, it's this. Let's keep the story moving forward.
Right.
And it's not always, you can, again, this might be a tip for a more seasoned GM, but you can also put it into the story somehow, weave it into the narrative. It doesn't have to be just you out of character or out of GM storytelling, like, hey, this is it. You can like, oh, you guys actually missed a note on the floor that says this, or an NPC now is in the scene and he details so and so, helping the scene to move along. It doesn't have to be out of character, out of game. Hey, this is the answer. You can, with some skill, and it's not something everyone will be able to do, you can implant it in the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dean, I think I wrote this one for you because this is something that you excel at. So read the last bit of advice.
Try to be as flexible as possible. Expect the unexpected. Players are going to do and try things you've never imagined, and that's great. It's a role-playing game after all. If need be, play fast and loose with the rules. No one wants to see you looking stuff up during a game. Make a rule and keep the story progressing. If they want to try something that is totally out of the question or against the rules, don't just say no. Offer them some alternatives that may make them satisfied. That right there, yes. I've made it a point to learn to do that because, like Anthony said, players, like you wrote, players going to do things that you're not looking for, that you don't expect. And, instead of just shutting players down or, saying they can't do it, Cypher system is the king system for me in learning how to say yes, but, yes, and. Because that way, you are going to build. You basically, what happens is players are going to look at that and be like, "Man, this is great. I got to do." You know what I mean? So yeah, that's important. Don't get yourself so locked into what the rule book says. Understand what the rule book says, but again, like Anthony said, make a ruling, and keep it moving. And then you can look that rule up later. You can adjust for the next session.
Yeah, I also think too, people are gonna, especially when someone's new to the system, or me personally, I call it the owl effect. You're gonna ask for everything, right? You ask for the world, and then as the GM, you turn around and say, hey, maybe you can't do this, but you could do this.
Right.
Or this, and give them options. It's like I said, no one wants to hear, no, the system doesn't allow that, or you can't do that, or no, it's like, maybe we can't do this, but we can do this, and it's really cool. Do you want to try that? You know what I mean? Give them alternatives.
I mean, and that goes also in the opposite direction too, as the GM. These guys, I'm just using that as an example, so you as a GM can kind of have a clue too. These guys we were playing GM roulette. I was doing the wrap-up game with our superhero game, and I think it was Al who could use his car as a weapon. And he was literally manifesting his car and dropping it on the bad guy, the dreadnought, And I was like, what in the hell am I gonna do? I'm not gonna they can't just beat this guy like from Al dropping the car.
With a cheat code.
You know, it said he had a cheat code. And I was like, wait a minute, how can I flip this? Al, I got a GM intrusion for you. Al said, yeah, I'll take it. So the minute he dropped the car this time, the Dreadnought monster separated into a bunch of smaller ones. So I used horde rules, you know, but again, thinking on your feet, thinking on the fly, how do you get around what players are going to do? Because again, I wasn't expecting him to start dropping the car on my bad guy, you know. It's like crazy. So it's things like that I'm trying to throw out there. You guys don't get yourself backed into a corner or feel like you're in a corner. You know, you can figure your way around it just like the players. So learn to say yes to yourself as well as saying yes to your players.
The last bit of advice I think is really important is remember to have fun personally. If you aren't enjoying yourself, it will be really hard for you to create an enjoyable experience for others. Now, I know it sounds like common sense, but it's the freaking truth. Be sure to insert things into the story that you personally enjoy and game systems and genres that you enjoy running, right? I cannot stress this enough. If you're not having fun, trust me, no one else is going to be having
Nobody.
fun.
Facts. And it's pretty easy. Well, not easy, but you can get a feel during the course of the game what people are enjoying too. This is something you can you learn as you go. And if you see in the beginning they're enjoying combat or they're enjoying role play or whatever have you, lean towards that. Have more fun at the table. Just because the pre-written adventure or whatever have you might have one thing over another thing, you as the GM should be flexible in that you can steer it one way or the other way if you see your tables enjoying a certain aspect of the game.
That's a fact too, Al. That's a gem, you know. Polish that up and put it in your pocket, people.
All right, so then these are some quick one-hitters. How do you make it enjoyable experience for all those involved? And these are pretty much like summaries of some of the other stuff we went over, but we can just go over them because they like one, 2 or 3 word sentences.
Yeah. I'll run down this list. So, how do we make it an enjoyable experience for all involved? Basically, a rundown of what we just talked about. Get everyone involved. Be sure to have a beginning and ending that will be memorable. This is
important.
We didn't talk about this one actually. Yeah. Let's actually touch on this one before I go on. This is hella important, right? So when you have a really good home game, right? Of course, there's going to be some cool things in the middle, right? But what really stands out the most is when there's an epic beginning, like the PCs come across something. The beginning scene is just super, in some way. And when the end scene is similar, like if you have some very big finale, that's gonna really make your game super memorable. And that's really what people want from a game. You want to have these stories to tell, and having a big, especially the ending is most critical. If you have a really big, fantastic ending, it's gonna be super, your players will be telling stories for a long time.
Right. And the thing about that, again, the one thing that you remember as a GM, we were saying that before, you be excited. You as a GM, give them that energy. Don't, unless there's something about that memorable portion that's supposed to be subdued, or that ending is something, but be there. But you got to be there. You got to be committed, and your commitment is going to make a difference.
Yeah, that Jason brought this up in chat, but we mentioned it earlier. That's why when you cut from the game, you cut from the middle. You never cut from the end. You always have to have the ending, right? And I think everyone has either done this as a GM or been in a game like this, right? And I'm not even talking about con games. I'm talking about role-playing game, RPG game, period. Any game you played online or in home. Have you ever played a 4-hour session that it was fantastic until the last 30 minutes of the game?
Yep.
Either it got cut off short, or the ending was meh, or the GM didn't know how to end it, and it ruined. 6 months later, you have no memory of all that 2.5, 3 hours of fantastic role playing you did. All you remember was that the ending was meh.
Yeah.
I've played video games like that, but thankfully I'm in a position where I have not had games like that. I've had bad games, don't get me wrong, but they were just bad, period. They weren't like the whole thing was bad.
Yeah.
I've never had a good game that ended poorly. Thank heavens I have not suffered that.
Lucky man. Lucky man.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that the whole game could be fun, except for the last 20 minutes, and no one remembers the 3 hours and 40 minutes that were fun.
And that's the thing, you forget all of that because there's no wrap up. There's no payoff. You know,
I've been on both sides. I've been the GM that's done that, and I've been the player that
experienced. Right. Like I said, again, we've had the time to learn how to do it. I mean, you've been there. That's all.
I don't want to speak for players who have played in my games, but I don't think I've ever done that as the GM either. I could be wrong. Maybe I have had a game that was fantastic that ended with a dud, but I feel like this is one tip, the ending scene, that's something that's always been important for me. Regardless of all the other things, I always want my end scene to be spectacular because, again, that's what's going to be lingering the most in their mind after you're done is how did it end? And this probably harks back to my love of storytelling in general. Because with stories, there's no pacing, there's no character, there's nothing else to worry about. But what's important is that story has a very memorable ending, which is why when I play a video game or read a story that has an unsatisfying ending, and I'll use a very specific example because I was talking about this earlier. I have played these games called Dark Anthology. It's like a trilogy of games. They're like movies. They're like quick time event movies. And the first two, I absolutely adored the story they set up. They were fantastic. They were crazy things that were going on. There were supernatural elements, blah, all this stuff. And then these things are kind of like M. Night Shyamalan movies. There's a twist at the end. The twist ending for both the first two games, absolutely garbage. Now my opinion of the game is that I would not recommend anyone play those two games because the payoff is just not there. And that mindset transitions over to RPGs where, in my mind, if I don't have a memorable end scene, what the hell am I doing? And it's important. That's again, for me, it's very important.
There's a couple of people in chat now mentioning games that have that very same experience.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Dean.
I was just saying, games, books, TV shows, movies, whatever, anything that doesn't pay off with a good ending, it just literally destroys everything that came before. And as a GM, like Anthony said, I've been on the side of the GM who've delivered a lackluster ending, but it made you learn. As a player, you know what? You don't know what you're going to get till you get there, But as a GM, it pushes you to learn and pushes you to develop that.
And in con perspective, right? Having the ending, you can't go because you have 4 hours and you only have 4 hours. You have to hit the ending. I can't stress that enough. You don't want to end 4 hours in and you have hours worth of material that you didn't touch on, and it happens to be the ending.
Right.
You know what I mean? Cut anything but the ending. Cut anything but the beginning or anything but the ending.
And if you do, and just before we move on, because again, this is so, I said it in chat. This is one of the worst things you could do is if you have a bad ending. If you find yourself struggling for time, right, and you didn't cut anything, like you made the mistake that you didn't cut anything, and now you're like you have 30 minutes left, and it's like you didn't hit that final scene. Quickly, and again, this is probably something harder for newer GMs, but quickly, I'm talking as fast as you can in your mind, come up with a way you can get to that ending, like spectacular ending in those 30 minutes. Don't just be like trail it off. I mean, sometimes cliffhangers, but you can cliffhanger with something epic too. If you have to do that, let it be a cliffhanger with something epic right beforehand. There needs to be something very memorable about the ending. Otherwise, again, you have to play with whatever you have to do, make it on the fly, whatever. That ending has to have something memorable in it.
If you guys need an example, just go watch Sean K. Reynolds run us in Claim the Sky, and watch what he does to El Animal at the end of the game. Epic, perfect. We want to revisit it because it was so cool. You know, it's one of those things that you're going, and this was a one shot. You know, but these are things that you learn to do. You start to visualize those moments, and guess what? Sometimes they're not even planned. That wasn't part of the plan, but it happens in that moment. Be able to take hold of those opportunities. So just remember that.
Before we move on to the next one, Al, Ken Hupp actually brought a good comment that we didn't mention in any of our notes. But Ken Hupp, well, don't feel bad if one or two people don't enjoy your game. You get a wide variety of people at con games. Sometimes you just get someone that doesn't mess with you. That's okay too. You tried your best. That's actually great advice. I should have put that in there. I'm stealing it. It's in my notes now. It's on our video. That's my advice now.
No, you bruised it. You bruised it.
Boost it.
No, you bruised it. No, Bruce, like Cordell, like he was taking notes. You just literally took a live note. It's ours now. That's it.
That's gonna be. You know what? That's gonna be.
Like you in real life, and everybody won't like you at the gaming table.
You know that's gonna be something. We got to add that to our lexicon of terminologies now. We're bruising it.
But
Right here first, we're bruising it.
That was a very long aside, and what we were saying was going to be like, quick bullet point entry for how do you make the enjoyable experience for all those involved. So moving along with the bullet points here, and again, these are things we touched on before. So be as helpful and welcoming as you can to players. It's like we said, just be open to questions. Answer questions. all those sorts of things. Make your NPC stand out and enjoyable to interact with during the game session. We could touch on this a little bit because we didn't talk about NPCs much. A memorable NPC.
Also, too, if you're doing a written intervention, recognize who are the important NPCs.
Yes,
absolutely.
That way you can highlight them. Yeah.
That was the problem with improving a game at a con. If you don't thoroughly read the invention, you start emphasizing like you pull the book and you'll be like, oh, Sally sounds like an interesting character. And then you spend the first 5 minutes, coming up with a cool personality for the character, and then you find out you turn the page and the invention, they die in the very beginning of the first scene. Like, recognize who are important to the overall narrative of the story.
But in defense of that particular thing, that could be a cool or very memorable opening scene too. Sally is like, you make her this cool personality and they embrace her, and then the next thing you know, you put her and blow her. Yeah, that could be.
And I will
like how those written con games, it would be like, run into Sally, the barmaid. She gives them information on where to go next. And then I'll spend 10 minutes, they're talking to Sally. And the very next scene is, as you walk out, you find Sally's code remains.
Exactly.
But that's also memorable, though. Like,
that's going to make it memorable. That's what I'm saying.
I will say
I should have read this invention.
Yagos wrote Sally.
A certain anime does this. I'm sure there's other animes that do it too, but that scene or that specific moment that's so memorable. Like, so don't be discouraged if you do find yourself taking that route. But for real, be sure to know who the important NPCs are. Because when it comes to when players but when a game is memorable, it's not just the PC's interactions that make it memorable. It's also the NPCs they come across. You the GM, are a memorable part of this experience. So be sure to recognize which NPCs will be key players.
Yeah, and sometimes the NPCs gravitate to. Sometimes the players gravitate to the NPC. You have no clue are going to be memorable.
Right. So I think
we have one last one, which is very important.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. Last but not least, and this is how to make enjoyable for everyone. Celebrate with the players during their victories and sympathize with them during their failures. It is always a great con session when the players feel they are playing a game with you instead of against you. So it's not a really good feeling when you're having all these low rolls or your character gets downed or whatever, and the GM kind of scoffs at you like, haha, I got you. Thankfully, I have never been in a game like that, but from stories, people like that exist, and that I cannot imagine being a good feeling.
Oh, that was the old.
Unless you're playing a specific game that actually, like if you're playing a meat grinder DCC game, that's okay. But if you're playing, certain games are designed to have that feel, us against them. But if you're playing a Cypher system game, traditionally that's not how players should feel.
Well, again, the us against them was early mentality in a lot of things that were D&D, because you got to remember D&D came from miniature skirmish gaming, miniature war gaming. So there was a us against them thing going on, but that's evolved or supposed to have evolved. And like Anthony said, there are some games that still use that. There are some games that's all.
Yeah, man, hella fun. DCC meat grinder,
right?
Fun.
Right, and that's very true. So just know what kind of game you're running, and make the players, make sure your players know what kind of game they're in as well.
And before we move on from this, KedHub said something fantastic. We're gonna Bruce it again, steal from him. He says a great way to make failure seem less bad is to explain that the character failing was because of circumstances or the environment instead of the character sucking. So maybe they, instead of missing their, they aimed their bow, they shoot and they missed. It wasn't that they aimed poorly. It was, they slipped on the mossy ground or something like that. It doesn't have to be that they're particularly bad at what they're doing. It was outside circumstances that made that happen, which again is a much better feeling than, I'm just bad at doing that thing.
It just made me laugh when you were like, it was just because they, not that they sucked, but the circumstances made them suck.
Well, but you think about it as a GM and with Cypher system, it does kind of facilitate and promote you be doing that as far as making the narrative work.
I totally get it. It just sounded funny to me.
Oh no, I know that too. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon, going that Cypher system is like just like that. Even the whole concept of like GM intrusions. They don't have to be bad. They just complications. So yeah, good stuff. So we're gonna move on to the last section, guys.
Can't help. We'll send you a T-shirt that says Cypher Unlimited in the front and I've been Bruced in the back. We'll make that happen for you.
But yeah, I think we're ready to talk about post game. What happens? What can you do after the game? To make sure things went well or whatever have you.
I think this first one is really important. There's not that much to it, but the first one is definitely important.
Yeah, I'll dive right into it.
Anthony, you jump in. You brought it up. Go for it.
Yeah.
All right. The first one is taking feedback. Hold on a second. I feel like I did a lot of the talking. That's what I was letting Al do it. But the first one is taking feedback and critique from the players. Ask your players for feedback about the game. What went wrong? What went right and what went wrong? Bring up specific scenes you think went well and others that you think that didn't go so well. Ask them if they felt the same. Feedback is important. Sometimes we think some things that we think was a really bad scene might just need a little tweaking to improve it. This is really helpful if you're planning to run the same adventure multiple times at a con. And what I just mean by this is, like, you get a group of new people and say, hey, was that fun? Like, is there anything that, did you like this scene when the avalanche happened? Was it cool the way, we ran the chase scene? And take their feedback. Because you might notice something wrong with the scene, but their ideas might help you fix it for the next time you plan to run it. And with con sessions, sometimes you run in the same adventure twice in one day. So if you could get feedback from the first session that's going to help you out in the second one.
Yeah, twice or more in one day.
I'm running the same adventure 3 times.
I'm just saying, no, you remember in the 2018 convention how many games I ran?
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I had a stock team for running games.
Yeah, he really
no,
did.
literally, I had to like, yo, dude, come on, you leave it. Like I physically had to remove him from the table.
And one other what is it? Damn, now the laughing got me. Let me look at the notes. Oh yeah. So one important aspect of this is, remember, time is limited. You can't keep your players like at the table, forever after the game, specifically con games. So the fun scenes, the good scenes, the players will most likely bring those up. Like, hey, I loved how you did this. I loved how you did that. You as the GM wanting to improve should be the one to mention the scenes you felt went poorly. Players will, especially people you don't know, will likely not feel comfortable bringing up scenes they did not enjoy. They're going to want to talk about the good stuff. So if you're looking for that critique, if you're looking for that advice to get better from your table, definitely be the one to bring it up. Get over your anxiety about bringing it up if you have any sort of reservations, because I would think 9 times out of 10, a player that you don't know, that you've never sat down with before, will not to your face tell you, hey, I did not like that you did this, or right. I did not like how this went. So it's up to you as a GM to bring up those moments that you feel may have not hit the mark.
In my mind, I'm thinking, damn, this mofo killed Sally 15 minutes into the game.
So the next one is, did you highlight the system or the company you're running for? This one's simple. Ask the players what they thought about the system. Do they understand the rules? And is there anything else they would like to know about the game? If they say no to any or all of the above, ask why and try to see if you can make corrections the next time, to better highlight the game or the company, and that's a big thing, like out the gate. One of the things that I like to do, especially because it's Monty Cook game Cypher system, you know what I do? I will highlight the system. I will highlight, hey, it's a simple system. You know what? Everything is based on a D20. It's based on target numbers multiplied by target numbers 1 to 10. Multiply that number by 3. That's what you need to roll on a 20-sided die. There's some other mechanics that help you manipulate that, but we'll get into that in game. Boom, give them that real quick. Also, like we're talking about highlighting the company. You talk about, are you familiar with MCG? This is a small company, but they put out some quality work. Here, just take a look at some of the artwork from some of their books real quick. Little things like that, or show images while you're playing. Hey, this is right out of the core rule book as you're running your game. Highlight aspects of the company that you like, and kind of plug it in as you're running your game.
That's all great advice. And ultimately, if you're running games for a company, your ultimate goal is to create a fun session that the players will enjoy, but you also want to highlight the product that you're running games for them. If you love the setting and genre of product that you're running, you want to make sure that other people like it, because then it's more players for whatever game, whether you're playing Monte Cook games, Numenera, or you're playing Fate, or you're playing D&D. You want to highlight whatever system you're running, because it's ultimately is more players for you to play with.
And and it works. It really, really does. At this past Gen Con, I had to run a game, pickup game, and it was supposed to be run as a 5e game. It was Tyrant's Key, and I ran it as a Cypher game for a group of D&D players who really wanted to play D&D, but I haven't run D&D in like 7 years, so I just didn't feel comfortable running a D&D adventure. And I ran a Cypher adventure, and no lie, the 12-year-old little boy walked out of there looking at his dad with his $10 in coupons from MCG. Dad, we need to go to the dealer's room because I need the Cypher system game in my life. So it can be done. It made me feel good because, I converted D&D player over, to the dark side, which is awesome.
All right, so the last thing we're gonna ask is, what can you learn or take away from every con session for the next game that you plan to run? Right, and me personally, what I try to take away from every con session is learning how to play with new people. Like I said earlier, I get nervous sometimes when for the first few minutes when I run a con game, and then it goes away when I realize that everyone at the table ultimately is here to have fun. And if they're having fun, those nerves go away, and we may have not known each other 15 minutes prior, but for the next 4 hours, we're an adventuring party, having fun together and enjoying this experience. So that's what I take away from every con game as a player and as a GM.
And I mean, more or less, I can honestly say the same. My takeaway is, like you said, I love to see people walk away from the table with a smile. I love to see people, tell me, hey, you know what, this was a great session, or this is one of the best con games I've ever played. So I reach out for that. I do my best to give people an experience, because for me, that's what it is. This for me is a interactive story. I get to be a part of this moment in time space continuum. This is my what if story, and that's kind of how it works for me. I want everybody to walk away going, you know what, I'll go play at this guy's table again.
That's great.
And someone like me, this is more of like what I try to take away myself personally or learn is my time management is god awful. Anyone who's played in my games, they'll know that this is one of my biggest hurdles. And my takeaway would be, hey, did I run what I felt was a full adventure or a full story? Did I hit all the important marks? It's, the important part is they had fun, obviously, right? But for me to learn and improve, did I hit those marks, those memorable moments in a time frame that felt comfortable? And did I get them, out on time? You definitely you can't be long in con games. So you want to have that timing down pat. And that would be what me personally, I would be trying to learn and improve upon with each con game.
Oh, I think we beat this con and we bruised it up as best we could. But before we go into our spiel, we're going to take some questions from the audience. If anybody has any questions, and we have one particular that was already given to us earlier in the Cypher Unlimited Discord, and I told them we'll definitely add it in. So does anybody have a question that Al, you want to read the question that we got from the Cypher Unlimited Discord?
Oh yeah, sure. Give me a second here. So we do have one from the Discord. I'm gonna butcher this name probably. Dirt Seha, either way. Dirt Seha, they ask, while I will have the time zone shift from Europe ahead of me for the con, I won't be online during my late night for this. Oh, excuse me, they were preambling why they wouldn't be for the show. The question, what to not do or expect as a first-time GM at a con? So yeah, this is an excellent question. So you as a first-time GM, what should you be expecting? What should you do or not do? So basically this whole video was a good explanation on what a new GM should do or, be ready with. But specifically something that I personally would recommend for a new GM is have cards or resources available in case you find yourself slipping with the written material. Like you may not vibe with the pre-written adventure that someone has written for you or that a company has given you. So if you find yourself struggling with story beats or whatever have you, NPCs, having those decks, those resources on hand, random tables if you don't like decks, having resources and your stuff prepared is very key. Just have stuff ready.
And I'll add to that by saying, don't expect to be perfect, and don't beat yourself up
You stole
about it.
my idea. That was what I was gonna say, D. That's perfect.
I'm sorry, but I'm serious. Don't expect to be perfect. Don't expect not to make a mistake. Don't beat yourself up about it, because even the most seasoned of us make mistakes sometimes. It doesn't make you a bad GM. And the reality of it is, if you are confident when you make that mistake, nobody knows really that it's a mistake but you. So remember that, be confident, go in there. Hey, I know what I'm doing. Make 72 mistakes. Doesn't make a difference. Have a good time with your game.
What not to expect is exactly what Dean said. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better than the way Dean said it. So I guess I'll touch on the other side. What do expect? Expect your players to sit at the table wanting to have fun. Most people that sign up for a con game are not signing up to not enjoy themselves. So in your mind, think of that. They want you to run a good game for them. So they're going to be more willing to jump into the storyline, to the narrative that you're preaching, because they want to have fun. Don't worry, are they having fun? Because their expectation is already set to have fun. So it's easier to provide someone with fun when they're ready to accept and willing to, put the fun in. So don't overanalyze. Expect them to want to have fun, have a good time, smile, be prepared as best you can, and enjoy yourself.
What Anthony said, just write yourself a mantra. I am the fun facilitator. That you gotta put your cape on. We should have capes.
I mean, I can't speak for the world, but at cons, I don't expect an epic story in a 4-hour session. I expect to have fun. So if I come away having fun, I'm happy. I can't speak for anyone else. So if you could provide fun at a con, you're halfway there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big truth. So I don't know if there's anything else. Anybody else got anything?
Anybody has any statements you want to read or any questions?
I mean, like I said, I think the only statement I'm going to drop out there is, like I said from the beginning, none of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Be confident in what you're doing. Have fun.
Jason C. put minor thing, but have the players introduce themselves. Have index cards for names and pronouns. Ask how long they've been playing, and if they played this game, it's a warm up to the players. Absolutely right. Amen to that, brother. Everything you said there was on point.
Yep.
Gonza Gaming, well, everyone having fun, including you, is the most important. Hell yeah. That's why we killed Sally in the first 15 minutes, because it was.
And you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, this has been a great talk.
So come on, Anthony, come on, Ant, get ready to take us home.
All right, so if you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Monica game. We already surpassed 4,000 members. We're actually zooming past that goal, but it's a great place to learn about MCG, play MCG games, post your own MCG games, talk about anything MCG, or just hang out with some pretty awesome guys and gals like us here. Or if Discord's not for you, join the Cypher Unlimited Facebook group. It's not as big as our Discord, but there's great conversations being had there daily as well. Give us a follow or a subscription here on Twitch. We'll greatly appreciate it. Or go to our YouTube channel, who has freshly hit 1,000 subs. And give us a like, share, and subscribe there as well. We'll greatly appreciate it. And we appreciate everyone that's already subbed. We love you guys. If you want to support us financially in any way, our videos are always free, but you can give us a little donation on Ko-fi, and it helps us out with little things like Zoom call. Or go to our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch like this hat or shirt that Dean got on. Al never shows us any love. You know, I think it's because we killed Sally, and you know, he secretly was having an affair with her. Or last but not least, I think I got everything. We love you guys.
Yeah, that was definitely everything. Thank you again so much, everybody, for stopping by. Just to mention it again, we'll be at Gamehole Con next weekend or next week. Well, it is the weekend.
Yeah.
What did I make? Oh, it's GHC. There we go. There's the
Also,
website.
last thing, we still have the giveaway plan, but we're actually going to talk to the MCG team at Gamehole Con, and somewhere in the middle of next month, we'll have the massive CU giveaway where we're gonna have tons of great products to give away to everyone on the server. And all you have to be is on the Cypher Unlimited Discord server to enter the raffle. We'll have a ton of great giveaways. We're thinking of some cool stuff. There's a lot of great content creators that are gonna provide awesome stuff to donate for the giveaway, not only MCG and other companies and such. So we just wanted to wait to after Gamehole Con to officially announce a date.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Damn, I completely lost my train of thought. So we're
Everybody's
gonna go.
RFP and Sally.
We're gonna go ahead and oh yeah, Gamehole Con. There's the link there for it. If you didn't know where the details, you can find it there. If you'll be in the area, we'd love to see you. So we'll definitely be active on the Discord in the convention channel, trying to actively hook up with people, link, talk to people.
I just thought of something really cool.
Oh,
everybody on YouTube or on Discord or on Twitch, stat out Sally in Cypher System for any setting you want, right? And after Gamehole Con, the three of us are going to pick out the best statted out with a backstory Sally, and we'll send you your choice of any MCG book. We'll send you the coupon of any MCG book in the Money Good Game site. So go ahead, stat out Sally for any setting, and give us a couple weeks to read entries, and we'll send you. So it could be any genre. It has to be an MCG book, but stat out Sally any way you want. You guys agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And let's take it one step further too, Ant. Let's also add Sally into as one of the NPCs, one of the random characters that we generate in GM Roulette.
Yeah. Whatever character, whoever's the contest winner will be in GM Roulette.
Sally will be part of GM Roulette.
Yeah.
You guys just throwing these things out. We did not have any discussion about any of this. They just literally just threw it out there. So go crazy, guys.
It doesn't make her a tier 1 character.
Yeah, and we'll say we'll give it you have a month from this day to enter. So even if you're watching the YouTube a day or two later after the stream, you'll still be eligible to enter. And just send one of us a DM on Discord with the link of your statted out character, and we will pick a Sally, and we'll announce the winner live on the Discord in a month's time.
So that'll be November 12th. So whoever's watching it, you have until November 12th.
Your choice of any MCG book on the site, on an MCG website.
All right, just throwing down challenge.
Because I'm broke. I'm going to Gamehole Con.
So this is like a very big GM intrusion for me. I have no way to piggyback off any of this. This is literally brand new information. So yeah, guys, take this contest and run with it. Let's see what kind of wacky Sallys we can meet. Because we do enjoy a memorable NPC. Everyone does.
Yeah. And Charles reminded us that Saturday at Gamehole Con is their birthday party. So if y'all going to Gamehole Con, be sure to join the Money Good Games birthday party.
Party time!
I had to take my glasses off for all this last minute information.
And
we just pulled out of nowhere.
I'm curious to see how they're gonna stack
real quick, just so everybody knows, November 12th. That's all we're gonna do. It's November 12th. Sally needs to be in by.
Yep.
I'm dying, guys.
They got
This has been like 10 minutes of one more quick thing. No, I'm just
Sally's
messing around.
important.
Oh, this is good. This has been a fantastic talk. Let's get this Sally contest underway.
Sister
And-
Sally is important.
Before we get any more tangents or contests going from us at the CU, we will see you later.
Bye, guys.